Hello, my name is John Lindley and I'm a freelance poet living in Congleton. I was born in Stockport but have been here in Congleton for over 20 years now, and I'm really pleased to have been asked to take part again in the Congleton Heritage Festival. This 2020 version is of course quite a bit different than the previous one, in that things having to be done remotely for reasons we all know. And I thought it might be an opportunity for me to perform a few of my poems. I think I'm going to do 8 poems. And largely these are poems that I haven't read for quite a long time. I wanted to do poems that pertained either to Congleton or to the surrounding area, to kind of fit in with the theme of the Congleton Heritage Festival. And I'm drawing largely on, I think, a collection called Cheshire Rising, which I have here. I don't know how whether you're seeing that the same way around as I am, because I'm seeing it backwards, like looking into a mirror here. So apologies if you are. The book is called Cheshire Rising. It's a book that came out in 2005, I think, just following my appointment as Cheshire Poet Laureate for 2004. The Poet Laureate scheme was run in the days when we had a Cheshire County Council, before it got split into East and West, and it ran from, I think, about 2003 probably till about 2008, 2009, and the post was held for 1 year, January 1st till December 31st. And I was commissioned to write poems during that year. I had a set number of commissions to do, but other commissions came along during the course of the year. I'm going to read a little bit, unusually for my poetry collections, and for most poetry collections, I guess. There is an introduction to this book. I needed to write an introduction about the scheme and what I tried to do within the role of Cheshire Poet Laureate. And I remember that I didn't apply the first time around. The reasons for that, which I won't read you all that in the introduction. But the thing I do want to read is a little bit further down. It says, "Another misconception of mine was that the position would demand one whose reputation was that of a nature poet. I'm not a countryman," Dylan Thomas told Vernon Watkins. "I stand for, if anything, the aspidistra, the provincial drive, the morning cafe, the evening pub, hotel and cinema, bookshop and tube station." I can empathise with that. Before my laureate year, I firmly believed that I stood for the same, that I was an urban poet. In truth, I was no more an urban poet than I was a nature poet. My poetry had always been largely about people, both real and imagined. It was only through the writing of Recognition, Stone by Stepping Stone, and some of the other commissioned poems within this book that I began to realise what should have been obvious to me from the first. People and place are interdependent, interchangeable, and at times almost indistinguishable. And so I'm going to start with a poem from this book. It wasn't one of the set commissioned ones. But it's one that relates exactly to Congleton, and it was commissioned by the Asprey Trust here. The poem eventually appeared in, I'm sure everybody's, wherever you live, sees these kind of brochures that appear in tourist informations and rangers' huts at various trusts and so on. And they asked me to write a poem about the little area that runs from Asprey Church to Asprey Mere. And here's the poem I wrote. It's called Exploring the Southern Fringes. St Mary's Church, stopping and starting point, where stones rise from the earth as Celtic cross, simple cross, and cherub and angel stand resolute in the ground's unscrolling wind. Here indeed is a lich gate that opens both ways, tempts us from grey stone to green field, takes in the grounded fat magpies bounding, delirious doves dizzy with freedom, children bewitched by comma and brimstone, careful scaffold of cobweb in hedgerow, scrambled lattice of rook's nest in beech tree, confetti of gulls wedded to water, a smoky vapour of swans on the mere, a glimpsed history of sand glinting through grass, and all of this in the blink of an eye, in the length of a stride, before we wheel full circle like that last scrap of buzzard, distant and dark against the Meccano of Croker Hill, wheel back to Asprey's church, its spire needling the bright sky for blessings. The spire needling the bright sky, I described it originally in the poem as witch-hatted. The people who commissioned the poem weren't too keen on a church being described in terms that might have had some bearing in sorcery. So that's the kind of thing you meet sometimes when you are writing commissioned poems. And there were one or two occasions where I really dug my heels in and insisted that what I'd written kept. In that case, it wasn't that big a deal to make a change to that poem. I read another one from Cheshire Rising. This was one of the commissioned poems, and it was to encourage people to get out there in the countryside. And this is called Step into Cheshire. Even a map of the place pulls you in, for there between caramel-coloured peaks and the Merseys and Dees stone-washed denim, a lawn green land calls from the paper, speaks of byways and lanes, of forests and dales. Step then from the map's tempting static spread, step out into the real thing, from Wales to Derbyshire, take in Mow Cop, Raw Head, tea shop and pub, castle and stately home, a sandstone trail from Lancs to Shrops, and one of gritstone, one of salt. Get out and roam the heaths and ridges north of Congleton. From Cheshire Plains, where town and country mesh, where ancient walls and ancient oaks collide, hear mere and river echo to the splash of kingfisher, see hawk and swallow glide. Stride this county, cycle, ride and rail it, and like that map unfold it north to south, east to west, canal it, cross it, trail it, roll it in your eyes, taste it in your mouth. If there's any stumbles in this reading, they may just stay in and get corrected. I'm not skilled enough to be editing this video, so everything is happening live. Isn't that exciting? Okay, I'll do one more from this book. A short poem. Well, it's a sonnet, and it was it was again commissioned by Cheshire County Council. It was one of the ones I really feared doing, to do it in a way that wouldn't sound too twee, I guess. There was a competition run to find the best village, the best kept village in Cheshire, and I wrote this poem called Pride of Place. Seeding the county as surely as grain seeds the land, towns and villages may push through time's soil, knowing that never again will a poet's pen, an artist's fine brush, a photographer's lens capture these streets, devoid of cars, home to handcart and cab, but may still record monument, church, neat row of cottages, grand town hall and pub. For though in time cobble may turn tarmac, and thoroughfare become a one-way street, the best of places always look both back and forward, letting past and present meet. The best help these two ages coincide and fuse through pride of place, a place of pride. I'm going to read a bit of a daft poem now. Take us up to about the halfway point, number 4 of the 8 poems. This is one that I don't think would have got into the commissions or into a book. This book wasn't entirely commissioned poems, by the way. I think there were, in the end, I don't know how many there were, probably about a dozen commissioned poems, and the rest were, as I would normally write my poems, on anything and everything. This was a poem written, I think, maybe a year before I was Cheshire Poet Laureate, and it's a bit of fluff, really, I guess. I live very near Congleton Park. In fact, just through my window here, I can see the River Dane that runs through the park. That starts up at up in Buxton and flows all the way to the River Weaver in Northwich. And I decided one day to put a crocodile in this Dane, at least in the poem. Yeah, I'm just looking. This is dated already because it's got to be, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago that the Congleton Chronicle changed days from Friday to Thursday, but it's remembered as a Friday here, and I think that works better because it's necessary for the weekend occurrences of this poem. The Congleton Croc. It came out on a Friday like the Chronicle. Before that, the early signs had not been too alarming. An empty packet of Walker's crisps, serrated in a most prosaic manner, heavy but indefinable prints on the river bank, a drop in the park's duck population, a spirograph of unsettled dew on the fizzing shaved grass of the bowling green, from the tail of something large and lively. The picnickers sense no inappropriate presence in the coppery shade of the elms or the jungly depths of the river. Night fell. Day got up. Night fell again. Thursday became Friday. Derek the drunk sat down in the Victorian bandstand. Jake snogged Ellie by the pavilion. Dazza, finishing his graffiti, turned up Eminem on his Walkman. Grooved over the bridge, out of the park, down the riverbank. All was as it always was. No one heard the thump of blood in the middle of the crocodile, in the middle of the river, in the middle of the night. No one saw a move at water's bottom that began with a raised foot pose at diagonally opposed corners and accelerated into something scaly, sensuous, and alive. It came out of the river like an exocet. Jaws at the utmost degree of the hinge. Dazza was easy. The first crunch was clearly a leg, but whether the next was bone or plastic, as moans, yelps and rhymes splintered out between teeth, was no one's guess. But no one heard. Not Ellie, 2 minutes pregnant. Not Jake, who promised to pull out, but didn't. Not Derek, now on his feet, one hand on the bandstand's rim, the other conducting, and certainly not the 2 members of Cheshire East Council, short-cutting home from the pub, talking shop, and entering the park like a second course. The croc snapped twice, ate fast, coiled like an outside chrysalis, and died, choked on a surfeit of policies even he couldn't swallow. A week passed. The Chronicle carried pictures. A monument was proposed to commemorate the dead for services rendered. Work began at once on the crocodile's statue. Walkman, hey? How quickly technology dates things. This is a poem that was written, that one was, I say, a year before becoming Cheshire Poet Laureate. This was the year after, and it was at a time I'm holding a programme here for Congleton Borough Council and Congleton Millennium Committee projects welcomes you to the grand opening of Congleton Park, Sunday, June 26th, 2005. Remember, there were all kind of dignitaries there. They'd had some funding. Some of the features that had been in the park many years ago were reintroduced. A broken cross from the town was reinstalled there. A drinking fountain that doesn't dispense water, but you can have everything. And I was asked if I would write a poem for the day to perform there at the pavilion, and it also appeared in the collection. And sorry, in this program, I should say. I don't think I've never published this poem in any of my collections, nor have I the previous one, Congleton Croc. I don't think I ever will. But this one's called Meeting Point. I referred earlier in the poem. I've just realised Pride of Place about when you get that marriage of a place moving with the times, but not demolishing that what has gone before, which we've seen all too often. And this was about trying to honour Congleton Park for the way it does seem to retain both elements. Meeting Point. So sorry, I will just say that the opening of the poem refers to a cannon up in Town Wood, no longer there. The story goes it was melted down and used for the a war aid. But there's a picture of some Victorian children playing on that cannon. I guess Victorian, I guess. Yeah, probably not Edwardian. And so that refers to that photograph, the opening of the poem. Meeting Point. No stern-faced, sailor-suited boys stiffly posed for posterity today, but their hearts are here, and the ghost of their suppressed smiles is too. It turns up in every corner of this park, on the playground and bowling green, the paths and pavilion, the gardens and fields, in the squirrel-riddled recesses of Town Wood. Though the whipped tops have spun out of sight, and 19th century skiffs have slipped moorings and sailed into sepia, the past is not dead. It has been hiding in the scalped ruins of the market cross, under the rust of a bandstand's rail, between the cracks in a sundial and in the long dry throat of a fountain. Through this day's horns of brass and silver blow the winds of change and permanence. Time passes, much prevails. The rain still falls, the sun still shines, and the monkey puzzle tree remains unsolved. Listen hard. Under the deafening silence of an absent cannon's blast, you'll hear the unmistakable hiss of a wooden hoop beneath a skateboard's whirring wheels. Look harder. New mooring rings gape their O of astonishment as the past, newborn and freshly painted, slides smoothly and surely towards us from a bend in the River Dane. Getting, I think, near the end here. 3 more poems. This is well, the third poem on the run that I didn't include in any of my collections. It was printed though in the programme of the Daneside Theatre, the local theatre, excellent theatre we have here in Congleton. Has the occasional professional production, but mainly amateur groups perform here, children and adults, and it's a real bonus to the town. Someone called Dee Melia, very talented director and a worker with people with learning difficulties, directed a play based on the works of Shakespeare, little fragments from lots of these Shakespeare plays. And I was asked if I would write a poem for the programme. And this is called, I should say that Congleton is known as Bear Town. This is called Sonnet 18 and a half, or Exit, pursued by Congleton Bear. I compare this to a summer's day. Its heart is warmer than the sunniest clime. No pale retelling of a Shakespeare play. This burns with fervent passion, glows with rhyme. And how these strolling players have applied themselves to entertain us here tonight. There's been no labour lost. They have aspired to greatness for our joy and our delight. I pray, sweet theatre goer, lend a lobe to Hamlet's plight, to Lady Macbeth's raving. Tonight the Daneside turns into the globe. The River Dane becomes the River Avon. Ambition o'erleapt itself? This cast says nay. Where there's a will, they've proved there is a way. A few years ago, obviously 2014 to 2018, there were various commemorations for the 100-year anniversary of the so-called Great War. I was involved in a couple of things there, a couple of anthologies that came out with children. First one involving primary and high school, the second one just high school children in Macclesfield. And also I was commissioned to write a poem. It's funny that these Congleton poems, they all seem to be commissions I'm talking about, don't they? So maybe it goes back to that thing I was saying earlier in that introduction to the book. You would that I tend to write. Well, I write on a lot of different subjects. I'm not unique in that. Many poets do, but I'm not really what you would call a place poet, a landscape poet, a person who writes about a specific place in any detail. But I suppose that the commissions have drawn me towards that. You get the impression from this little bit of film that I do nothing but write commission poems, and nothing could be further from the truth. Most of the poems are at my own volition. This one was commissioned, and I read it on Armistice Day at the War Memorial here in Congleton. When I knew I was writing, when I was booked to do this commission, I looked through some of the aforementioned Congleton chronicles for the time of the First World War, and noticed that there was a thing called the Chronicle Shilling Fund, and this was designed to provide for widows and orphans as a result of that war. People were asked to donate into it. I was also, it left a bad taste in the mouth reading some of the editorials in that paper. It was just the copy I was reading was just before conscription came in, and they were clearly intent on shaming anyone who didn't volunteer to go and fight, and say, do you really want your families in the future knowing that you had to be forced to do this? I'm not sure the editor made his way out there to the fields of France and so on, but anyway, this poem I took for the first stanza of the poem. I just used names that appear on the War Memorial in Congleton. The poem is called Paid in Full. MacDonald, Rutledge, Espley, Jones, Morris, Lomas, Truman, Cope, Hodgkinson and Ball, Barnett, Parker, Hill, Dean, Rutland, Norris, Robinson, Mountford, Sproston, Blake and Hall. For the widows and orphans to come, the Chronicles Shilling Fund, please donate. And from distant France an insistent drum thrums in the hearts of men at glory's gate. Join the colours, fly the flag, share in the fighting. The cause is vague, but for now the choice is free, and the sound of a rifle's more exciting than that of a machine in a factory. Taylor, Joseph, Turner, Frank, Carney, James. Here, sir, each schoolboy with arm erect. Now, different uniforms, but the same names barked out. The reply, yes, sir, present and correct. But a country's flag protects no one from harm, a bitter truth that many learn too late. Death is no respecter of uniform. It is random, cold, indiscriminate. Now Walter Ashley, Samuel Jesse Wright, all those who joined the great majority, march from light to dark, from dark to light, carved in stone and on our faint memory. A bell in St. Stephen's rings, shadows fall on Lawton Street, answers are sought. What price glory? A shilling for the widows, the orphans, a penny for your thoughts. And I'm going to finish with a poem from Cheshire Rising, the book I read from earlier. That last poem, Paid in Full, appears in my latest collection, Love and Crossbones. I'll give that a plug. Again, I don't know whether you're seeing this the right way around or not. But yeah, that's Love and Crossbones. This is the title poem from Cheshire Rising. This was a commissioned poem that there was an exhibition at the Salt Museum in Northwich called Revealing Cheshire's Past, and I was contacted and asked if I'd write a poem that could go on a display board as you entered the exhibition. It was going to be a touring exhibition, touring around Cheshire. And I said, well, obviously I've not seen the exhibition. And in fact, it hadn't even begun. They were setting it up. So they sent me some bump, and it looked really interesting. But it was of the things you would kind of expect, Viking helmets, Roman coins, and so on. And in writing something about Cheshire's past, I started thinking about the fact that obviously the past is continually being remade. When I started this film, that is in the past. And so I wanted to do a kind of journey. I guess it's a personification poem in that the my in the poem isn't John Lindley, it is the county of Cheshire speaking. And I'll finish with this one. It's called Cheshire Rising. My song began in the sand and brine of a slow retreating sea, when I crawled to shore and I stood upright and the light poured down on me. And my work began in the bones and flint of the tools I made my own. And mine is the song of time itself, and mine is the song of stone. My limbs were forged in the blazing sun, and my eyes were lit by fire, and my voice rang out in the razor wind, and that wind became my choir. My fingers turned to rivers and roads, and my choir became a mass, and mine is the song of iron and bronze, and mine is the song of glass. My head dreamt a word for a place of work, and my lips formed factory, and my blood was the oil of 1,000 cogs that turned the machinery, and my voice is heard in the whispered words of the microchip and plough. And mine is the song of days long gone, and mine is the song of now. My pulse is the locomotive chant of a heart that beats in crew. My skin is a skein of cotton and silk from a life that Macclesfield knew. My speech is the salt on Winsford's tongue, and my throat is a quarry of sand. I'm the splintering sound of a Tudor beam in the palm of Chester's hand. That sound remains in the Cheshire plains as the light of evening dies, and it echoes in the dish of Jodrell Bank and goes out to the Cheshire skies. It flows through the Dee to Connor's Quay, to the sea that I came from, and mine is the song of here and gone, and mine is the song to come. Okay, well that was the eighth and final poem of this film, broadcast, whatever. Hope you like them, or like some of them. I hope someone's out there watching and listening, and I hope you're all keeping safe and doing whatever you feel you should be doing. That's looking after yourself and looking after other people as well. Again, thank you to the organisers of this festival, this Congleton Heritage Festival, for including me again. And let's hope that next time I see you, it's not virtually, but all the best.